What happened around 10:45 p.m. on April 19, 2023, along Indiana Street in Jefferson County is not in dispute. Three 18-year-olds, Joe Koenig, Nicholas Carroll Chick, and Zach Kwok, were together in a pickup, and one of them threw a 9-pound rock that smashed through Alexa Bartel's windshield, killing her instantly. Koenig is charged with first-degree murder for Bartel's death, 9 counts of attempted murder for others whose vehicles were hit by rocks, and counts of assault and attempted assault. It's the charges themselves that are in dispute.
Joe Koenig made reckless, impulsive, and tragic choices. There's no question about it, but he did not knowingly commit a murder.
That's defense attorney Tom Ward during his opening statement on the trial's first day.
Joe Koenig and Zach Kwok and Mitch Carrollchick were not terrorists. They were teenagers.
Ward also told the jury they'd hear from a nationally known expert on adolescent brain development. That expert will say the brains of 18-year-olds are not fully developed, particularly in an area known as the prefrontal cortex.
That's responsible for self-regulation, the ability to control behavior, thoughts, and emotions. And it is not fully formed until the early to mid-20s.
Ultimately, it'll be up to those jurors to consider whether what happened to Alexa Bartel was murder or something much less serious, manslaughter. Koenig's co-defendants, Carrollchick and Kwok, both pleaded guilty to lesser charges. Carrollchick faces at least 35 years in prison, Kwok at least 20. If Koenig is convicted of first-degree murder, he faces life without parole.
So we're wondering, you're in the courtroom, what this has been like, hearing from those two young people, critical to the case for the prosecution, right? How did they come across, and was there, you can't really see Joe Koenig. Was there any reaction, though, or did they look at him?
So where the deputies bring them in is a door that's literally right in front of the desk where Joe Koenig is sitting with his lawyers, and they have to walk him right past him, as close as we are now. And the witness stand is no more than 10 feet from that seat, but it faces the jury, and so Joe Koenig is over to their left. So I'm looking at the back of Joe Koenig's head, so I don't know what kind of facial expressions there were, but the two of them did not look at him except when the prosecutor asked them, is Joe Koenig in the courtroom, can you identify him? And then they would turn, point to him, say what he was wearing.
The defense is trying to put holes in the testimony of Kwok and Carrollchick, saying they got a sweetheart deal. You just said they're facing 35 and 20 years in prison for sure. That doesn't sound like too much of a sweetheart deal.
It's a sweetheart deal in this way. A first-degree murder charge was dismissed for each of them, and first-degree murder is life without parole in Colorado now.
What about the Bartel family?
Large contingent of people that are there every day. They fill one entire side of the benches in the back of the courtroom. And they've had some emotional moments.
I was going to say, is it visceral?
Yeah,
Can you hear and feel?
Most recently, when Zachary Kwok was testifying, he said that he saw the speedometer in the truck get up to 103 miles an hour right before he says Joe Koenig threw the rock, and there was a member of her family that got very upset and had to leave the courtroom.
Well, it struck me, yeah, when you bring that up, when they talked to him about that, but then when they asked him about going back and driving by and that they never called 911, that had to be awful for them to hear.
Yeah, and Zachary Kwok was very unemotional in his testimony. Nicholas Carrollchick was very emotional talking about that. You know, he's pretty matter-of-fact on building up to the night, but when they got to talking about actually killing Alexa Bartel and going back, driving back by twice, he was very emotional through all of that testimony.
There was so much in last week, the day off today. What is ahead? What do you expect to see this week?
The defense is going to put on a case. I think it's probably going to be a fairly short one. The only thing that they talked about in their opening statement was they'll be arguing for lesser charges from the jury, and they're going to bring in an expert on adolescent brain development. And according to them, he's going to testify about the fact that 18 to 21-year-olds still don't have fully formed brains, don't have the sort of the judgment and the impulse control that you develop as you go on in life a little bit.
Well, we know you'll be back there covering it for us as we continue to follow this case. It's a sad story.
Very sad.
All right, Kevin, thanks.